what we're after on today's session, specifically for today, is we want to really work on how to build authority and get clients to come to you. Right? That's the outcome. As you walk through today's session, you should leave very, very clear on exactly how to position yourself as the go-to authority and how to get clients to come to you pre-positioned to buy. You know, some of the key problems, some of the key challenges we face in our agencies are usually the way we're marketing leads to us having to chase prospects down, right? Even a little bit of what we did yesterday with the cold outreach formula, right? We're getting a list, we're cold calling them, we're showing up at their door, we're sitting in BNI, and you know, they're not really that interested. They haven't learned much about us. They don't know much about what we can do. And so if that's the dynamic, usually we're the ones chasing the prospects down. Type chase in the comments if you ever feel like that's you. You're chasing, right? You're working hard to try and get those at bats. You're working hard to get those people to like give you a couple minutes of their time to take them through the consultative sales process. And usually if you have to chase a prospect down in order to get a demo with them or to get a couple minutes of their time, there's going to be a hard sale. Like they'll give you a couple minutes, but they're like, prove to me why I should hire you. Prove to me like your SaaS is best, right? And that's not a fun position to be in. Often what I find is when we're in a hard sell, there's a low close ratio, right? We have to meet with a lot more people. We have to have a lot more conversations to get the outcome that we're after. And the reality is, if we stay in this chase mode in our agency, if we're not able to shift our model to the place where we're in a position of authority and the clients are coming to us, really, you're not going to land enough clients. You're not going to be able to hit the goals and targets and build the agency and business or SaaS that you're after. And so really, I think the biggest thing that helped to elevate our agency from struggling, less than, low six figures to a multiple seven-figure agency was this transition, this shift from chasing prospects to inbound. Really, this was the thing that propelled us forward. And really what we want to show you how to do is get the clients to come to you pre-positioned to buy. So they're not like, hey, I'll give you 2 seconds of my time. They're coming in and saying, hey, you know what? I've seen what you're all about, right? I know that you know what you're doing. And it's really more a conversation of how much is this going to cost, right? How much is it going to cost for me to hire your services? Give me a yes in the comments if you think that would be powerful to kind of change your positioning from chase to having clients coming to you, from a hard sale to them like already being influenced by your value and interested and kind of leaning in to do business with you. When you do it this way, there's much lower sales resistance and you can get consistent growth and momentum, right? Because you're not having to work nearly as hard. I really believe when you get this dialed in, you're going to be able to build the agency of your dreams, right? To land clients consistently, retain those clients, and have the type of influence and success that you're after in your life and in your business. So I think really the starting point of client attraction is authority. So I want to share with you guys 9 key positioning assets that can make you the authority in any niche, regardless of the niche that you're in. And I think this is a good time for you guys just to kind of pop in the niche that you're going after. I work with plumbing and HVAC companies. Let us know, like in the comments here, what's your niche, right? Because I want you to be thinking and putting your thinking cap on how you can leverage these 9 positioning assets in your niche, right? Because again, the attraction starts with authority. It starts with positioning. So the first thing we want to do in my mind is we want a keynote presentation. And so what this is, when I say keynote, I'm not saying it has to be keynote. Could be PowerPoint, could be Google Slides. I want you to have a positioning presentation that you've recorded that you could say, hey, look, I want to speak in front of 100 plumbing companies or 100 churches, Chris, or 100 government contractors. And I know if I could get that opportunity, I could have something of value to say, right? So for us, my initial keynote was the complete guide to internet marketing for plumbing and HVAC contractors. 5 things every plumbing and HVAC company should do to maximize their lead flow online. And I just had 5 key things, right? Set up your website so it's built to convert. Make sure that you're ranking in the organic listings. Make sure you're leveraging paid search. Make sure you've got reviews and you're coming up on the Google map. and then make sure that you've got tracking in place so you can see how much you're spending and how many leads are coming in, right? In a Cliff Note style version. You want to come up with a keynote presentation similar to that. When I think about our SaaS and what we're doing, our SaaS, our white label version of high level is called Conversion Amp, right? It's solving the number one challenge that I think most plumbing and HVAC companies face, which is a lack of ability to convert their leads because they're not following up quick enough, because they aren't leveraging automation. And so my keynote presentation for Conversion Amp is how to solve the number one marketing challenge facing the plumbing and HVAC industry. So I don't know, Paulson, any thoughts on this kind of just this concept of having a keynote presentation for the industry and kind of your main positioning content?
Yeah, I mean, my biggest takeaway so far, Josh, is preparation builds confidence. So when you go through these demos or conversation opportunities, if you have items that you know are great points that's going to really wow them, that you're the expert, and you practice that, you're going to really be able to articulate it in like a very smooth way, like when it's go time, right? We can have demos that are fancy, we can read through it, we can write through it, but if you cannot convince what's in these demos to like a 5-year-old, you're up for a challenge, because either your love language of how you think about it is very techy, or the way you talk about it, it doesn't align with the industry keywords and languages, right? So you want to really like practice how you enunciate, how you present your offers, and all these things. So to Josh's point of these positioning assets, right? It starts with you and your confidence and the preparation. And that's what I'm thinking about as you just share this, Josh.
100%. So yeah, give me a one if you could do a PowerPoint or a keynote or a Google slide specifically for your niche that talks about like 5 key things they should all be doing, right? This is a great positioning asset that can be used in a variety of ways once you've got it done. Second thing is, I think we want to have a marketing guide for the niche. And so this is that same exact keynote presentation, basically as a long form PDF. And the way I did this, and the way that we show our 7-figure agency members to do this, is you take your keynote presentation and you record it, right? You turn on ScreenFlow, or you screen on whatever recording system you use, and you record yourself talking about those 5 key things. And then you can extrapolate that. You can have it transcribed and turn those 5 key bullets into subchapters within your guide, right? And so you've got this positioning video keynote presentation that gets turned into a marketing guide. This is just a shortcutted way to create those 2 positioning assets that really solidify your thinking and like how you can add value to the marketplace, but also give you assets that you can use, right? Because if you've got a guide, you can use that as a lead magnet. If you've got a guide, you can mail it out via cold outreach. If you've got a keynote presentation that you've recorded, you could potentially speak in an association. You could potentially do a webinar for an association. You can put on your own webinars. You can have your own content that you roll out. Give me a one if this makes sense, if you're kind of tracking along. Second positioning asset, Dave, thank you, is a marketing guide for the niche. The third thing I recommend, and I don't want you to go crazy with this, but is to have a niche website with good content on it. So, like if you think about your SaaS and what your SaaS is going to do, if it's specific to an industry, don't just have it be a landing page. Like have a web page or a website that's got content that basically gives the key information that's in your guide, the key information that's in your keynote presentation. That way your website becomes a hub that's got all of the answers that your prospects would want about whatever problems you solve in that industry. So as an example, I work with plumbing and HVAC companies. I had Click Incorporated when I started. It was just a general digital marketing agency that did websites, SEO, pay-per-click. At some point, we landed on the plumbing and HVAC industry. We said, let's set up plumberseo.net. And we made plumberseo.net a hub that answered, like, what are the most commonly searched plumbing keywords for SEO and paid search? What should you do with your plumbing website to make sure it gets ranked? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so what I really want to suggest that you do, this isn't hard to do. Don't like make it like super fancy. Get the domain that has your niche plus like what you do and put content in it. Don't make it just a sales page. Make it a place where they can get information, they can get answers. And you could do that via text. You could do that via video. You could do that via podcast, but it starts to become the hub for the industry. Now, of course, if you've got a great niche website that ranks organically, that's going to draw inbound traffic. If you can reference the fact that you've got a website and you start to reach out to the trade association, you start to reach out to prospects, you have more clout, right? You're more of influence, right? And that's what this is all about, is how to build authority within your niche. Really good example of this is Ray Molaski. He runs an agency called Cleaning Clicks. It's an agency that works specifically with residential cleaning contractors, and like maid services and things like that. And his actual business is called Web Launch, and that's he was like a web design hosting SEO company, had some good authority there, but it never really did much for him. Like, no one would ever go to that website. No one would become a lead from that website. And he kind of latched onto this concept, like, why don't I just set up something specific for the maid service industry? And he started putting content out there specifically for cleaning services, maid services on digital marketing. And this became one of his number one sources of positioning and new client flow. So really think about this. You could spend a ton of time, you could spend a little bit of time, but having that asset is going to further position you in the industry. It's going to help get clients to come to you. Number 4, like a key thing that we all have to have, if we're going to have authority, if we're going to have positioning in the industry, is client case studies and testimonials, right? Anybody can talk about how good they are. Oh yeah, or they can talk about how to do digital marketing. They can talk about how to get ranked in the search engine. They can talk about how to leverage various SaaS tools. The real thing that's going to make you stand out, the real thing that's going to make people want to do business with you is your proven results, right? And so getting your clients to tell your story, like, here's what they did for me, here's the results they got for me, here how this has impacted my growth, is powerful. Being able to demonstrate, via web, videos and things like that. Here's the client, here's where they were, here's where they're at today. Here's a snapshot or a screenshot of their tracking dashboard where I can show how many leads they got, how many sales they got. I think one of the most powerful things you can do to establish authority within your space is to have case studies and testimonials. Number 5 kind of goes hand in hand with the first one, which is to have video-based trainings. This is just taking your keynote presentation, recording it. And what I find is pretty interesting is usually if you've got a 45-minute keynote presentation on your 5 topics, really what you have is 5 10-minute segments. How to get the website ranked, how to build authority, how to optimize for conversion. And you can record separate video-based trainings on each of those, right? And so that video training can be on YouTube, it can be on Facebook, it can be on Instagram, but it's content that can be found by influencers in your space, by the prospects that you want to do business with, that will make them think, okay, this guy, this gal knows the industry, has proven results, and I should probably potentially do some business with them. So it's a powerful marketing asset. Now, in my mind, the number one positioning asset that will actually help to make you stand out versus anybody else in your space is a book, right? My book, How to Triple Your Sales by Getting Your Internet Marketing Right. I wrote the book on internet marketing for plumbing companies. I did this a long time ago. It was more impressive back then, but it still carries weight today, right? You can say that you wrote the book on internet marketing. You wrote the book on whatever the services that you provide for your specific niche. That positioning goes a long ways. Like, that positioning can be used so many different ways. Think about the ways you could use a book if you had one published. You could send it out to prospects. This is what we've done a lot, right? We just mail it out to the top prospects in our industry. It costs about the same amount as a brochure to have printed through Amazon Create Space. Literally, this will cost me $2. If I got a nice fancy brochure that nobody cares about, Cost me about $2. So the cost of this is negligible, but if you think about the difference, if you got a brochure in the mail, what are you going to do with it? You're going to toss it in the trash. If you get a book, nobody throws a book away. This is going to sit on the desk. And maybe worst case, it's going to sit on a shelf. Like books have a long shelf life. Like they position you as an expert. So you can mail it out. You can give it at trade shows and events. You can also leverage it to get speaking opportunities, right? There's two things that make you the outright expert in your niche. Two things: being the published author, the book, and being the person at the front of the room. The person teaching, the person sharing their expertise is by definition the authority, right? The author. And so you can use your book to say, hey, look, I wrote this book on marketing for plumbing and HVAC companies. I'd love to come share some great strategies with the association, right? If you've got the book, you've got a keynote presentation, you've got a guide, you've got content sitting on YouTube, they're going to say, hey, yeah, we'd love to have you come out. And that speaking also positions you better within the space.
Also, Josh, I want to address those folks that are starting out, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
So if you're absolutely brand new in the space of the industry, maybe you don't feel that confident to go write a book about it, right? Like it's just not reasonable, right? So what you want to do is spend about 30 to 40 minutes every single day for about a month and a half, maybe even 2 months if you have to. Listen to the industry related podcasts, authorities, books, whatever it is. Start priming your mind on the knowledge of the industry. And what you want to do is start small, start writing articles of your opinions on very, very intriguing topics. So if you use a canvas, let's say, for example, I'll give you a perfect example. There's a presidential candidate that we had, great marketer, used, disruption as the canvas, right? To one's opinion. Another one who is, very philanthropist model, and that's the canvas that he used or she used, right? So everyone has a marketing canvas that they really capture the audience on. So whatever tonality or the voice that you find is you as yourself, which is gonna, to me, go far. So start finding that tonality, your canvas that you want to write in, and start writing 2 or 3 page articles, okay, for the industry. So when you do go talk to a prospect, you can say, hey, listen, last quarter I wrote the article on 5 key strategies of how to get patients to show up, right? I provided this article and I submitted to this conference, that journal, and these people, and they're pending publishing and providing feedback for me. But as soon as they publish, I'll let you know. But I just wanted to give this over to you because I think this will help you as a resource. How many of you think that even that minor positioning you do for your own self will change the conversation of sales? Right? Thomas says yes. Chung says yes. You see how something small, like we already write anyway. You might as well structure it out where it's more of like an academic writing. And it doesn't have to be published. It doesn't have to be a 100-page Old and New Testament Bible. Like it doesn't have to be any of that, right? Just start positioning yourself as an authority at a smaller level. And that's going to get you to the point where you're like Josh running multi-7-figure agency, and he's probably overdue about 3 books by now. He'd probably tell you that, right? Yeah. Okay, cool.
Good. Yeah, good. Hopefully that was helpful, everybody. Just kind of thinking that through. You don't feel like you have to go straight to it. Brian says, what do you do when you're not a good writer, right? When you don't like to write? I think all of us have different things we're good at. Some of us like to write. Some of us like to talk. Some of us like to shoot videos. Find the modality that's most comfortable for you. Me personally, I'm not a great writer. I would never sit down and punch out a book. I'm on video. I like to shoot video. So for me, I literally took my keynote presentation, had it transcribed, got someone that is a good writer, kind of formed it into chapters. And before I know it, I've got my first book that's ready for prime time, right? So that's a great place to start. Like if you're not a great writer, you can get some help on this, right? You can hire ghostwriting services. It should be your thought process that you do want your actual content to be what's being fed through the book. Yeah, Will says, yeah, have it transcribed. Yes, Landy, that's how I wrote this book. Right, this book literally have a presentation called How to Triple Your Sales by Getting Your Internet Marketing Right. It's about a 90-minute presentation. I conducted it a number of times live. I did it at a couple of the industry events. I said, hey, you know what? I'm going to have that transcribed. And I added to it, right? 90 minutes gives you about 90 pages of content. I added some checklists. I add some extra stuff. Before you know it, it's a 184-page book, right? With enough clout that you can really physically send it out. So if that's how you're comfortable, that's a great mechanism to do it. The other thing I'll say is it relates to the book. We all want to write a great book, right? And yes, we want it to be read. And yes, we want it to be a persuasive sales letter that somebody would be like, yes, wow, that was amazing information. I want to go hire these people to do my marketing, or I'm going to go hire them to implement my SaaS. But the reality is only about 2% of the population ever read a book. Like, they'll get the book, they'll be impressed, right? Okay, cool, there's a book there. They'll maybe look at the first page, if that. So am I telling you don't write a good book? No. But I am suggesting don't overthink it, right? Don't feel like your book has to be perfect, right? Make a nice cover, fill it with some good content, make it positive, like make it good, but don't feel like it has to be perfect. Better to get something out. That way you've got the asset, you've got the positioning, than to wait for it to be perfect. Because you know when perfect comes? Never. It literally never comes. So get something done. Get version 1 done. Get it in place. If you look at my videos, if you look at my content, especially early on, it looks terrible, right? And the writing was terrible. But as you get more comfortable, as you get more confident, it gets better and better over time. So don't overthink it. Put book in the comments if you feel like you could create a book for your niche that would position you, and you have some ideas on how you would leverage the book as an asset, right? To get in front of your ideal prospects, to get it in their inbox, to capture their contact details, to get speaking opportunities. Okay. We want to also make sure we get follow-up sequences. When someone follows up, when someone opts in for our stuff, we want to have a nurture campaign, right? Where we're dripping value on our prospect database. That's going to position you as an expert. Podcast will absolutely make you a perceived expert, right? Run webinars, be on podcasts, or have your own, and publish a book. Podcast is literally just audio uploaded into the cloud, right? It's a very, very easy mechanism. And so you could either take key content and put it up and have it on a podcast, or you can interview successful people. But the reality is, because a podcast for most people feels like, oh, that's somebody of authority that would have a podcast. That's somebody of authority that would have a book. That's somebody of authority that would be speaking on the stage, is going to give you better authority. It's going to give you better positioning. Charles says he has 5 books published so far. Very good. So the other thing is a print newsletter. And I just put that in there because we're in such a digital world today, and everybody's so focused on digital, like the emails and the videos and the social posts, but there's not much going out in the mail anymore. And so if you have the wherewithal to get a printed newsletter, 5-page document that you mail out to your prospect base, that will give you authority and positioning and kind of have you arrive in a way different than the other people prospecting into your niche. So these are the positioning assets. Hopefully you're going to be able to find 1 or 2 of these that you can say, hey, you know what? I don't have a keynote yet. I need to start there. I don't have a guide. I don't have my book yet. And you have something to work on next that can go out and position you better in the industry. Paulson, anything else you want to add on these positioning assets before we press forward?
Yeah, Josh, while you were talking, I was busy doodling. And what I was doodling is going to be helpful for everybody, actually. I just mapped this out in how I'm imagining what you're talking about, right?
Love it.
I have, don't ask me for links, guys. Take your screenshots now. I'm literally doodling. So let me just change this to podcast, you said, Josh.
Yep.
So up here, you have a ton of areas to bring them in, right? So, a ton of places that you're just capturing the traffic left and right. Then you have a niche website. Then you can even have subsidiary offer funnels that complement each specific service or product if you want, in addition to the niche website. And imagine if you just had 3 case studies. You can turn that into a case study as well as a testimonial, right? So, like that, even just with 3 big case studies, you can have 6 assets and you drive that traffic into a discovery call and an appointment. I mean, Josh, what would you add here? I mean, am I looking at this the right way? Or
I think that's perfect, man. I love the visual, and you're right. That's exactly it. These positioning assets sit at the top. They draw people into your world. The testimonials and case studies are in like the bottom of the funnel where they're like, okay, do I really trust this person? Do they really know what they're doing? Can I really rely on them to get me the results? And then discovery call sales process. I love that, guys. One in comments if it's helpful that Paulson just mapped this out on the fly. I think this is awesome.
Yeah, and look at bigger companies, right, guys? Like, how many of you guys know if you go to Starbucks, you're not gonna get the pumpkin spice latte until like October? Like, those offers don't even exist, right? Same thing with other massive companies. They have seasonal offers. So don't get, too hung up on lead magnets or offers or things like that. As you go, you're gonna save the good ones for later. So let's say you test out 5 of them. Out of the 5, you may have 2 that are rock star offers or lead magnets. So now you have 2 to start with. You go to the next quarter, guess what? You launch another 5. Out of that 5, you have 2 more. So collectively, you're just building up digital online assets, and you'll start seeing traffic coming from all kinds of different places, giving yourself a very good chance of being omnipresent. Okay.
Love it. Love it. And I'm just going to kind of fill in the gap here with a couple of things. So visually speaking, like this is my company, plumberseo.net. You'll see like this speaks directly to the niche. We help plumbing and HVAC companies increase their sales by getting their internet marketing right. There's video. There's our book, right? This is what I do. People opt in for this book that puts them into the top of the funnel. We talk about the value proposition, why people want to do business with us. And then we've got our webinars, which we do on a very consistent basis. We've got our speaking opportunities. And like this is how we position ourselves. This is why people come to us. And then they check out the case studies and examples, which is like front and center, right? We want them to see what we did for Edison Electric and T.R. Miller and Paul the plumber, right? If we want to learn more, we can drive in, right? And we can see the details, but we can also hear directly from the owner of that business on how it works. So I just wanted to kind of share this because I'm talking a lot in bullets, but it'd be helpful to kind of share the screen a little bit and walk you through like a visual representation of this in the real world. And as I study the members of Seven Figure Agents that we work with very closely, the ones that have results, they do this, right? They go out and they publish the book and they do the webinars and they position themselves and they become the category kings of their niche. Give me a 1 if you're tracking along with me here, guys. Yes, Dave, thank you. Appreciate it. Awesome. So now let's look bigger picture about digital marketing, right? If we think about inbound marketing specifically, to me, inbound marketing is a combination of 2 things. It's great content that positions you as the go-to expert in your space, and it can be discovered online. It can be discovered on YouTube. It can be discovered on podcasts. It can be discovered on Google. It can be discovered, right? I think that's inbound marketing. That's portion number 1 of it. I think portion number 2 of inbound marketing is a database of prospects that know, like, and trust you. So it's not your cold email list that you bought from Coldlytics, right? Because that's just a list, right? Inbound marketing comes in the convergence of content that can be found and a database that has watched your videos, that has consumed your content and starts to know, like, trust, and believe that you can add value to their life and their business. And it's new content being rolled out on an ongoing basis. Really, in order for inbound marketing to work, it's not a single fire thing. You don't make one guide. You don't record one video. You don't create one case study. You have to almost create a little bit of an engine where new content, new resources are being rolled out on a consistent basis so that it can feed the inbound engine and it can also nurture that database of people that know, like, and trust you. And so if we think about it, here's kind of how I see this play out typically. I'm a big proponent of joining the association. I spent a lot of time on this yesterday and the day before, right? One of the great shortcuts in your niche, instead of just buying a list, is to join the association, right? And become part of that association. So we wind up with a list of people in the association. Maybe we run some Facebook ads or we run some Google ads and we get people to opt in for a guide, or they request our book, or they buy it on Amazon. We wind up with the marketed leads that we generate. And if we're doing cold email on a consistent basis, right, we've got a list. We've got a list of prospects that we got their name, their phone number, their email address, and we sent our introductions. We sent our shot across the bow messages and tried to move them to long-term nurture. And what I find is usually this stuff's going to sit in our CRM. This is going to sit in high level, right? It's going to be sitting there. We've got all of these names. We've got all of these contacts. Some of them have gotten multiple messages from us. Some of us have gotten only a few. But what usually happens is this, eventually the sequence runs its course, right? They opted in for something. We sent them a couple of emails, sequence is shot, and there's no ongoing communication. And really, this is the recipe for failure in positioning yourself in the marketplace, right? In order for you to be effective, in order for you to have a consistent flow of new contacts, you have to do more than just having these prospects sitting in your database. Really, what we want to do is develop a relationship with all of these contacts. I'm a big fan of GKIC, Dan Kennedy, over the years. And I was sitting in a session once with Frank Kern. And something he said really stood out to me. He says, the money isn't in your list, it's in your relationship with the list, right? Your financial productivity comes from people knowing and liking and trusting you on your list. So the question is, how do we move from having these contacts that got a couple messages from us to having a relationship with the list? Well, a couple things. First of all, we've got to touch them on a consistent basis, right? Because you've got to be like contacting your database in a value-added way, like 2 to 3 times per week. And I'll talk about how we do this, but if you're not sending at least one message to your database on a weekly basis, they're not going to remember you. They're not going to remain top of mind with you at all. Because even if you sent 2 messages a week, with the amount of emails they get, with the amount of social communication that they get, with the amount of noise that's happening in the marketplace, they're probably only going to see one of those on any given month. So one thing we want to up our frequency in how we communicate with our database. Secondarily, we want to add value, right? We cannot be reaching out to our database 2 to 3 times per week with the same boring, hey, do you need some help? Hey, do you want to generate more leads? Right? You have to actually be giving them things that they get that feels value added, right? That feels like, okay, this is going to help me. This is useful to me. So we have to add value to the database. We have to nurture the database, which means like get them to know us little by little, like reveal more and more of us and our story. So it's not just information about how necessarily you're going to help them. It could also be like a little bit about your backstory, your origin story, why you do what you do, why you're passionate about it, right? Revealing yourself and nurturing the relationship with that database, and then ultimately offering to help, right? If all you do is contact your database again and again and again, but you will never say, hey, by the way, if you'd like some help with this, here's how we can work together. Here's your next step. You're going to wind up doing a lot of activity without a lot to show for it. So this is the formula. Like, going back to when plumbing and HVAC SEO was, 15 or 20 clients, and we were kind of stagnated, we committed to this process. We got a database. We continue to grow the database, but we nurture them 2 to 3 times per week. We add value and we offer to help. Now, this probably feels like a lot of work, right? You got to contact the database multiple times. You got to do all of this content, right? Just type in work if this feels like it's going to be a lot of work to implement and to fulfill. Dave, I appreciate your visual cues because that hand up helps me. So I've got a shortcut, right, for this process. And this is the shortcut that all of you can use that I found to be extremely, extremely powerful. And that's that monthly webinars, live webinar events, not unlike what we're doing right here, are the ultimate content lever for your agency growth. Now, let me kind of walk you through why. We want to do 2 things, right? We want to grow our database, and we want to nurture that database. We want more and more prospects sitting on our CRM, sitting at high level, that we've got their name, address, and phone number. We want new people entering the fold. And then we want to nurture that database. We want those people to be hearing from us in a value-added way. And so webinars really give us the ability to do this, because when you put out new content with your webinars and you record them, you can put them on YouTube, you can put them on iTunes, you can put them on SlideShare, you can put them on Facebook groups like this and others, right? You put them out there. And if you do it correctly, if you syndicate it and say, hey, if you'd like more, go to plumberseo.net/free, where you can download our free guide and get all of the additional resources. All of the content you produce will attract new people into the very top of your funnel. So it does that. A webinar, live event has the unique ability to do that because it forces you to create content, but then it also gets you the ability to nurture your database. Now, I'm assuming when I say webinars, like live workshops like this, what I'm saying is they should be unique. It should be a different topic and it should be value added. We're not just trying to do a sales pitch. We're actually trying to show up and add value to the niche that we serve, right? And so when you do this, you get a fresh event to invite them to. Like, I'm a big fan of once a month doing a webinar, putting the date and time onto the calendar, sending some emails about it. The emails nurture the database, right? It gives you a reason to contact them in a value-added way, to invite them and to send them the link to the replay, right? So this is a powerful shortcut to really create that process, to nurture the database and create the new content that we're after. Really, in my mind, and this stems back to like 7 years ago when I really got committed to this, is that it's a systematic process for creating new content to nurture your database. So that the lever, really, like if I break this down even further, what's happening is you get a reason to email them multiple times, right? You can't just email them, hey, you need help. Hey, here's my new guide, right? Something about the fact that it's a live event happening at a date and time, people are more accepting to an email saying, hey, Josh's thing's coming up on Thursday at 3. Hey, it's Thursday at 2:45. You better go log in now. Thursday at 5 o'clock. Hey, in case you missed it, go watch the recording, right? You can be in their inbox and in their social feed more because you're inviting them to something and it's got a start time and an end time. Give me a one if you're tracking along with me, if this makes sense. This is like one of the main reasons this works. So we're inviting them to the webinar, maybe like 2 or 3 times. We're sending them the reminder right before the event starts, and then we're sending the replay. Hey, in case you want to watch it again, or in case you have missed it and you want to go see it, go watch the replay. It drives us new content, right? Because every time you do a new webinar, you're going to record it, right? And as you record it, that content can be syndicated in a lot of different ways, right? You can take the live recording, right? You're going to do the live thing, like what we're doing right now. You're on here live. Like, this is a live content that's being produced by Paulson in the high level community. This is live content that's happening. But then you're going to have the YouTube recording, right? You take that video file and you load it up to YouTube, right? Paulson and his team are going to take this and it's going to be sitting on YouTube, and it will be discovered weeks from now, months from now, years from now, from people looking on how to attract clients in their industry. You can do the same thing for your particular niche, right? You get to load up the recording. As a bonus, really what I suggest, again, if you've got a 1 hour long webinar and you've got 5 key bullets, the 5 key things that you're teaching in that particular webinar, each one of those becomes a segment. Like, you can take that 10-minute clip, cut it out, have a front part of it and an end part of it, like add a little clip at the beginning and the end. And at the end, specifically, you say, hey, I really hope you enjoyed that training. If you'd like more ideas and strategies on how to grow your whatever, right, your plumbing or HVAC business, go to plumberseo.net. There, we've got a free guide that's going to walk you through exactly how to get this implemented in your business, right? And that takes them to the top of the funnel. So now we've got the live video, we've got the sliced up recording of it. You can then take the video and create a blog post on your website. You can either choose to transcribe it or not. I would say transcribe it, because then it's going to give you more SEO juice from where it's posted. The audio from the recording becomes your podcast, right? Most of the podcast episodes for Plumber SEO are literally just the audio from my webinars, and they're just long form educational based content that people discover on Apple iTunes. SlideShare is very sticky. SlideShare is a slide sharing site. Take the actual slides from your presentation and upload it to SlideShare, name it accordingly, tag it accordingly. That gets discovered. That passes juice to your website from an SEO perspective. And then you get the chance to leverage all over social media. You can leverage, hey, webinars coming up, post about it on your personal profile, post it on your business page. If you're in groups specific to your industry and you've got the relationship where you can do that and don't do this without having permission and kind of have it, you can post in the group. Hey, I'm doing this webinar. In case you want to join us, go here and check it out. Hey, I just did it, right? Give me a yes in comments if you see how just doing one webinar gives you a lot of value. It gives you a lot of different places, and it forces you into a consistent rhythm of creating a topic, showing up live, creating the content, syndicating it out. I love the idea of doing more than this, but the reality is like one webinar per month can really drive your entire content engine. That's what it does for us. So this one webinar creates at least 3 touches to the database, right? We want to touch the database at least a couple times per week. And it gives you 6 pieces of content that you get to go out and syndicate online. Now, again, we're doing value-added content. Like if you're doing the same webinar again and again and again, this doesn't work, right? If you're doing a webinar that you just showed up so that you could get them hot and excited and then offer them a sales pitch, nobody's going to want to watch that. It doesn't get useful. But if you make this useful content written or designed specifically for your niche where they would watch it and be like, hey, I want to go watch that again. I want to share that with my friends. This becomes extremely, extremely powerful positioning for you in your business. Really, what I found is one webinar per month can drive your entire lead and content machine. Paul, so I want to pause there and see if there's any questions or if there's anything you want to add on this.
Well, Josh, again, I've been doodling again right here.
Nice. Love your doodles, man. Keep it going.
I want to share this with you guys because I'm just looking at it from the sense of content production, right? Like one webinar could be like this, you know. I'm just moving these things along so you guys can see it. I'll just make it somewhere in there. Let me just make it a little bit more reasonable to see. And there's like few items that's actually missing in here too. There's more things you can do here. But is this helpful? Like one webinar turned into 5 2-minute video clips, right? Because you have the content, right? You can turn into 5 audiograms. Anybody know what an audiogram is? You know what an audiogram is?
Yep.
It's a still picture with audio playing in it with the progression bar at the bottom. Gives it a nice little feel. It's got music and things like that. You can, if you have a 1-hour webinar, you can definitely turn that into a 30-minute podcast episode.
Yep.
Here's another item you can have. One episode for YouTube channel, right?
Yeah.
Like that's another area that you can throw in. These all your slides turn into lead magnets. Hey, downloadable PDFs based on something I talked about. 5 key strategies of something, right? Definitely a social media posting, right? You can definitely turn into a blog, right? And if it's long enough, and if you have the topics mapped out properly, you can even turn those into an article or a white paper. Now, all of a sudden, like, the concept of content is not like the problem. Now you're thinking about what are the relevant topics that are more evergreen, and that's the way you want to think about. You don't want to talk about just like, you know, what is it, today's news, crypto crashed 5 times today. Like that's not relevant to the industries of tomorrow, like forever. You want to focus on content in the industry that's going to be relevant, evergreen. But I mean, there's even more things you can do than this, guys. I'm just doodling just for fun. But like, is this giving you guys some ideas? Is it giving you some great ideas of how you can have team members managing some of these things? And one single monthly webinar turns into a full-on automated production. I mean, it's crazy. But either way, guys, hopefully this is helping.
100%. I love your doodles. Keep doing it. I think this helps to fill in gaps and kind of give some context here. So, yeah. Paulson, thanks for adding that. That was awesome. So some good questions here, which I'm going to address right now, which I think is great. I've seen like, when is a good time to do webinars? What would I do my webinars on? We're going to talk about that now. I'm going to dive into 6 principles for putting this into place in the real world. So just number 6 in the comments, if you want to get practical with this, you want to get into the specifics on like how you would do this, how you would map it out, how you would get it done. So I want to see some 6s in the comments. Landy says, this is wonderful, referring to your drawings, Paulson. So I love that. Keep it. All right. Lots of 6s coming in. Okay. So first thing we want to do for the webinar is we want to set up the webinar funnel and offer them a shortcut. We want to set up the webinar funnel and offer them a shortcut. So when you produce a webinar, you're going to have a registration page, a place where they can enter their name and their email address to register for it. And then just like we did with our lead magnet, we want to offer them the shortcut to the main thing that we want them to do next. And I want to offer you guys a hack, like a really powerful hack here that can really justify this entire effort, this entire process. Give me a hack in the comments if you're interested in hearing a really cool hack to get more and more appointments with your ideal customers. That's going to help you land more and more clients. I'm gonna wait because I want to see all of you guys take 2 seconds and put hack into the, and you're not calling me a hack, you're getting the hack. So this is good. Here's the reality of the situation. 80-20 principle applies to just about everything in life, but the prospects you want to do business with, the ones that are A players, type A personalities that run $1 million businesses in your niche, are usually pretty busy people. They're usually not the ones that are going to attend your webinars live. This is what I found. I would promote the webinar and I would spend a lot of time. Okay, I got these emails going on. I got these social ads going on. I got these social posts. I got these slides. I got this great content. And I'm going to get my best prospects on there, going to watch the webinar. And at the end of the webinar, they're going to be so impressed that they're going to schedule it on my calendar. I'm going to get lots of sales. And what I found was I was doing a lot of these webinars and I was putting out content. It was producing results, but there weren't that many immediate results. And I was like, I wonder why. And I started to like check in, like, why, why didn't these guys come to the webinar? Why didn't they participate? It's because they're busy, right? And so it dawned on me, if what I really want them to do is to get their attention and get them to schedule in with me, why don't I offer the shortcut? Just like the shortcut that we provide when they opt in for our lead magnet. And so what I did was I started to move them straight from, hey, register for the webinar to, hey, thanks so much for registering for the webinar. You're going to love it. Block it into your calendar. If you're like most plumbing and HVAC companies, you want to understand how this works, but more likely you want somebody that can implement this for you, right? Somebody that understands these practices and can put it in place in the real world. So if that's you, feel free to participate in the webinar. But if that's you, I'd like you to schedule a time right now. We're one-to-one. We'll look at this and we'll help show you how you can put it in place, right? And we offer them that shortcut. And we found we got more scheduled appointments and more long-term deal flow from that 2-step process by offering them the shortcut. So here's the hack, right? You can get qualified appointments from the promotion of your webinars, even if you didn't show up, even if you didn't provide an amazing webinar, just promoting the webinar and having the shortcut on the confirmation page will position you, will make you appear prolific, and will help you schedule strategy sessions. Give me one if that makes sense, right? Because we vex over how good the webinar needs to be. We vex over the slides. And the reality is we just need to come up with great topics, promote those topics, get it out in email, get it out in social media, and then have the mechanism to convert the opportunities as quickly as possible. Now, I'm not saying don't do good webinars. I'm not saying don't come up with good content. I'm not saying not to show up and deliver the goods, but the reality is this effort on a monthly basis will keep your calendar full. It will force you to create new content, and it will make you prolific, the authority in your niche, the authority in your space. And this is just an example. Every time we do a webinar, we take them to that little pre-screening process, and we get blown up with applicants that, they either come via email, more likely now they hit our pipeline, and we've got scheduled strategy session before the webinar even took place, right? And this gets better and better and better as your list grows, right? As you have more and more people that you're inviting, as your audience grows on Facebook and you put Facebook ad dollars behind it. So again, really what I want you to understand, what I want you to take away from this little piece here is we spend so much time vexing over the perfect webinar, and most of the people aren't going to attend, right? They're not going to watch the replay. So what we really need to focus on is putting out great topics, right? And we're going to spend a little time thinking about the great topics that you could use, because it's promotion of the webinar, catching them, and then having the follow-up for the people that wanted it, right? Promote more webinars. Be consistent with this process. So next step is we want to promote the webinar for maximum effect, right? To get as much attention from it as possible. And so we're going to use email. Obviously, we've got an email database. We're going to send emails out to those prospects on our list. We're going to do social posts so that you're going to post about it. Hey, I got a webinar coming up about how to get ranked on Google Maps, right? On Thursday at 2:00 for roofing contractors, right? We post about that on social. We post about that in the groups that we're in. We let people know that it's coming up. I do suggest running promoted posts. So this is predominantly not necessarily to a cold audience, but to your retargeting audience. So if you've been putting out content, you've got people that have landed on your site before, or you've got like your prospect list and you've matched it as a custom audience, this is a great place. Every time you do your monthly webinar, turn on some promoted Facebook ads for it. So they're seeing emails about it. They're seeing it in their social feed, and they're seeing advertisements, webinar on this topic coming up this Thursday at 3:00. So we're going to really promote it. And remember, this has a cumulative effect, right? One webinar once is going to get seen and lost. One webinar like this done in this way every single month, you're going to be more prolific than anybody else in your industry, right? Because they're seeing you everywhere, when really you're just doing one really well promoted webinar per month. You could also think about doing social messaging. So over time, as you're prospecting, as you're reaching out to your cold prospects, as you're building your Dream 100 list, you're connecting with people on Facebook, like you're becoming friends with them. Ideally, at least for your Dream 100 list, I suggest a personal message via social media and LinkedIn. Probably want to have a VA for this. This isn't something you're going to want to send to 100 people one-off. But hey, just want to let you know I got a webinar coming up. Would you be interested in attending? Right? That's the kind of message. Don't like drop a link and everything in the social post. Have your VA send a message like that. When they reply back, you send them the link, and then you sell by chat. You kind of move them into a strategy session right off the gates. Direct phone calls, right? This is a much more productive activity than cold calling. Like if you cold call your niche list or you cold call your industry list, hey, you want some more leads? You're going to get hung up 9 times out of 10. If you're calling like in a strategic way, hey, you got a webinar coming up specifically for plumbing companies on how you can generate better results online. Wanted to see if you'd be interested in participating. Sure. Okay, great. What's the best email address to send to get you registered? Awesome. Again, it's going to be Thursday at 3:00. Excited to see you there. By the way, while I've got you, can we schedule a quick session after to kind of answer any questions that you have and kind of talk about how to help you implement this? Yeah, great. Okay, let's book that for Thursday at 5:00. Right? Give me one if you think, if you're doing cold calls at all, this is a much more effective use of your cold call energy than literally cold calling, right? So this is how we promote the webinars. We're going to send emails. We're going to do social posts. We're going to create some energy around it. Any questions or thoughts on this on the promotional side of things? Paulson, I don't want to just hit bullets for the next 20 minutes and kind of lose everybody's attention.
Yeah, just something I want to add to this. Your promotion doesn't end with the event itself, right? Like you still can promote the event that happened yesterday with shooting out, hey, you might have missed this event. Here's the big bullet points of what we talked about. We had 100 plumbers come together and join us. Here were the biggest takeaways. Because when you do promotions even after the event, guess what's happening? You're kind of setting yourself for success on the next one that you're going to run. They're going to want to not miss out, right? So it's almost like an alley-oop to yourself for the future. But definitely remember that promotions don't end just because the event is done and over with.
100%. Yeah, and we're gonna talk about syndication and getting the most benefit from every one of these webinars after the fact. So we're gonna promote the webinar, number 2. Number 3, we're gonna show up and provide value, right? We've got to show up and provide a great webinar. Now, the question that usually comes up here is, like, what do I do my webinars about? What are the topics? I'll talk about that in a minute, but some of the ones we've had success with, every year you can do an internet marketing planning or a specific planning session for the niche. That works well, and you can actually do that quarterly. It's almost evergreen. Hey, you know what? It's a new quarter. Time to start thinking about the next quarter. let's get together live on Thursday at 3 o'clock, and we're going to help you map out your marketing plan. And we're going to help you map out whatever your particular service does, right? The annual and the quarterly planning is amazing. For us, like, I'm a big student of the game, so I'm always reading the latest blogs on what's happening with SEO, with pay-per-click, with social media. I'm members of the various groups. And so I'm just listening for, like, what are the latest trends, what's happening in online marketing, and then applying it to the plumbing and HVAC world, right? Because very few people create content in general, but even fewer are making it specific to your niche. And so if all you did was take the latest information and say, hey, I'm going to do a quick session on Thursday at 5 o'clock on that particular thing, you're going to be very relevant. You're going to be very, very timely. That's the kind of thing that works well. So the new SEO formula for the year, how to optimize your website for maximum conversion, how to get ranked on the Google map, how to optimize your lead flow with Google Ads, how to win with local service ads, a big thing in home services and in most services today, local service ads, your quarterly planning session. You can come up with an infinite supply of topics. What I like to do is come up with like a library of 12 really good ones that I can recycle, right? It's like every year you've got these 12 that you revisit again and again. It's spread out enough that it is new and unique, and things always change, right? So the thing on Google Maps is going to be a little different from 2021 than it is in 2022. And you can be very timely and on top of the ball. What I would say is what to do your webinars on is think about the trainings that you participate in, right? You're all students of the game. Just apply that to your niche. Cover the fundamentals, right? Don't feel like you have to be on the cutting edge of what's working and on the cutting edge of what the most fancy digital marketing or the SaaS ideas are. Cover the basic fundamentals, right? Cover the 20% that's going to have the biggest impact, because your client, your prospect, they're not marketers, right? They're business owners that are busy with their own thing. They just want to know the basics. They need to know the basic fundamentals. And if you can deliver that to them in a way that's useful, you're going to capture their attention. It's going to be something that's relevant and again actually has a little bit of a shelf life online. So I want to give you guys a minute. Like, if you were to come up with 2 or 3 topics for webinars over the next 2 to 3 months, let's pause it. Let's give them, like, how much time? 2 to 3 minutes just to kind of come up with a couple of topics they could do webinars on?
Yeah, let's do that. I think that's a good pause for us to just take a moment and just breathe all this in. And think of mainstream topics that could be relevant to your industry, guys. Like right now, obviously Elon is going through a combative takeover of Twitter. But how is Twitter affecting the plumbers of the world today? Is it even affecting them? But it's really about you positioning yourself as the first person to provide an opinion. It doesn't even matter what the opinion is. Hey, this is what's happening, right? When TikTok first came out, I saw a ton of people that said, hey, here's a way to include TikTok into your next marketing plan, right? Like, think about ways to be relevant with the current news at the same time, making sure it's not too far off. So it is evergreen content. But like Josh said, stick with the basics. Let's take a minute or two, guys. I want to see some comments. I want to see a ton of comments in the Facebook streaming on the topics. Give us 2 topics that you're going to talk about, okay, in the next month or so with your first webinar, right? Let's see what's coming up here.
Charles has got how to write an effective elevator pitch. Check out these podcasts, blogs, video clips, 5 hacks. Love it. One that's specific to SaaS that I'm working on as we speak, our SaaS conversion amp, is the 5 conversion links that are costing your plumbing or HVAC business dearly. And I'll literally just talk about not having a live chat, not having missed call text back. I think things like that, it just seems so easy and basic, but it creates a gap and it actually gives knowledge to the prospects.
Yeah. I had somebody like that, similar fashion. They were doing something for SaaS and they focused on the reduced costs, and they said, hey, here's $100 that you're not keeping track of with software costs.
Tracking
your industry, right? Here's $100 you don't see every month because it's such a small number, they're not even paying attention, right? And that's all it takes for a SaaS client sometimes. Let's see. There's some more comments coming in here, Josh. Give us two topics that you're going to cover for your industry, and if you're an agency going after marketing agencies, same thing applies to you.
So we get website content planning, how to improve your website, landing pages versus websites, how to automate your systems to get more qualified leads. Love it. John says SMS marketing and GMB optimization tips.
Yeah,
Will
look at
says
that
training.
one. I like the one Landy just shared, right? How to automate your systems to get more qualified leads. But
That's a good topic. Yeah.
imagine taking that, Landy, and applying it to your industry. How to automate your plumbing marketing systems to get more home property owners qualified, right? You want to go even deeper in those headlines so it's relevant to the industry. There's more coming in, Josh. I see more people engaging, so thank you.
Love it, guys. How to GMB chat, how GMB chat improves SEO. Like that. Hilton, Don Ferguson, great to see you on here. 4 types of social media posts that are costing your restaurant thousands. Very
If you
good.
read through those, Josh, do you think these industries will know those technical languages that's coming up in here? Like, this is an area of improvement I'm seeing.
Yeah, maybe like if we use GMB chat to improve SEO, like call it Google Maps, right? A lot of your clients probably don't recognize GMB.
Yeah.
But there's also something to be said for speaking, to the more advanced crowd. That way they're like, okay, this is new information, right? So you might get away with it in certain cases.
Yeah, I usually do something like capture everybody that's visiting your website. Right. It's such an elementary language that they can understand.
Yep.
But great interaction here. So let's go ahead and move on.
Good work, guys. I'm glad you're thinking about this, right? Because we don't want this just to be information. We want you to take this and implement it and get some results with it. All right, so we thought about what we would do our webinars about. Next thing we want to do, we want to follow up effectively. So we've promoted the webinar. We showed up and created great value on the specific topic that we were training on. Next thing is we want to follow up. And so some key things you want to do after the webinar, always post a replay, right? Always take that, put it up on YouTube, put it onto a landing page, and then put it up onto a blog. Post a replay, send it out on social media, send it out via email. Email that out to the group. What I see most people miss, and I think this is interesting, is we do the webinar to create top of mind awareness, to nurture the database, to create content, but really we're doing it because we want people to be influenced by us and we want them to schedule in for appointments, right? Like at the end of the day, we're putting on this content to create clients, right? To create strategy sessions that lead to deal flow. And so it's funny to me, very rarely, as I see people that do webinars, do they call the people that registered. Very rarely do I see they call the people that attended. And so if you're doing any type of follow-up, pick up the phone or have your appointment setters, and you should have appointment setters at some level in your business. You shouldn't be doing this yourself. That calls it, hey, we noticed that you registered for last week's webinar. Did you have a chance to attend? No? Oh, it was awesome. Do you want me to send you a replay? Sure, I'm glad to send that out. By the way, while I've got you, I'd love to schedule a quick one-to-one where we can kind of bring you up to speed on the cliff notes and show you exactly what you can do to get that X outcome, right? You can generate a lot of appointments through this. Chris Johnstone, who works in the mortgage industry, was able to double the amount of sales that were coming from his webinar flow just by putting a call process on the back end of all of his webinars, right? Calling the people that registered and attended first, and then calling just the people that registered in general second, right? Give me one if you think you can add that to your process, right? One in the comments. Paulson, I see you unmuted.
Yeah, I mean, guys, like if you don't have time for a phone call, like do a voicemail drop because they're already opted in and registered for a webinar, right? They're legally in your ecosystem where you could call them. So even a voicemail drop is not a bad start.
100%. Love that. So we're going to follow up and then we're going to syndicate the content, right? And I think a lot of the magic and a lot of the productivity from this comes from really syndicating it, right? getting the most bang for the content that you just generated. And so number one stop for your content, you take the video file, you load it up to YouTube, right? And you name it, right? So don't just name it like how to maximize your GMB results. Like include the industry in the title, include the industry. So you'll see mine all say, the SEO formula for plumbing and HVAC contractors, how to solve the marketing challenge plumbing and HVAC contractors are facing, right? That's what makes it relevant to the industry. That's what's going to make it discoverable to that specific industry. So load it up, be strategic with how you think through the naming and the titling of the content so it gets some SEO juice behind it. Embed the video and the transcript onto your blog. Going back, and I could show you the analytics on our site, we get thousands of visitors every single month from ideally plumbing and HVAC companies searching and finding our content on our website. Because if I did an hour-long webinar on Google Maps and I've got a video for it, that is like 1,000 words in text. That's very, very specific, and it's very relevant from long tail key terms. So you can use Rev, you can use Otter.ai, lots of tools to transcribe in a couple of seconds your entire video. Don't just put the video up there. Have the video, have a call to action, and then put that long form text, which is the transcript. And we use the toggle, right? Because otherwise it would look ridiculous. But you can set it where, like, if you want to read the transcript and you click the button and it toggles down all the text, the search engine still read that content and it gives you context for that particular page. So create the blog post. Take the audio file and load it up into iTunes. Take the slide and like the PDF version of your slides and load it up to SlideShare. SlideShare is owned by LinkedIn. SlideShare passes tremendous organic juice. So people search on SlideShare. We get organic traffic from SlideShare, but it also passes links back to your homepage, back to that blog, back to the relevance of what you're trying to create. Post about it on social media. And then also, I didn't put this in here, but also syndicate the replay, right? So you can have your recording up on Facebook and you can drive some traffic to your retargeted audience about that. But then you can also set up a dedicated replay opt-in, right? Every one of your webinars, theoretically, if it was good and it was really relevant and it was well attended, you could start to advertise. Hey, opt-in, we've got this like on-demand training that they can click, enter their email, and gain access to. So really syndicate this to the nth degree. And then number 6 is rinse, repeat, right? Do this every month, right? What I want you to imagine for a minute is if you were putting out one webinar per month, you were sending 2 or 3 emails about it in advance, you were offering prospects a shortcut where they could schedule in, you were calling the list in your industry, your Dream 100, maybe even dropping something in the mail to invite them, then you were following up after the fact. You were taking the segments of your thing and you were uploading it on YouTube, you were putting it on social media. Imagine how much authority you would develop and how known you could become in a relatively short period of time in your niche, right? Imagine that for a minute and recognize that it feels like a lot, but it's literally one anchored webinar per month. One webinar per month can drive this entire activity for you. So roll out one webinar each month, promote it via email and social media, syndicate it exactly like we talked about here, build your authority, nurture your list, and drive new sales. Like this is the client attraction method, right? We get our list, we nurture the list, we put out value, we become known, new people enter our sphere, we're prolific, we get more speaking opportunities, we become invited into industry stuff, and we become the go-to player in our particular niche. We'd love to hear any key insights on this or any questions or any key takeaways. I do have some more stuff we can dive into, but I want to kind of make sure that we address any pending questions on this.
Josh, one thing I can appreciate about you is you don't really teach anything that you don't really do.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
I've been seeing Josh's content for at least 6-7 years. I only got to meet Josh less than 2 years ago, personally, but I've seen his content from years and years, and I would take it for inspiration and apply it to my dental space, apply it to my automotive space. And here we are doing a webinar around the same thing we've been doing for like 10 years plus, guys. This is not, business is not really rocket science and strategy. It really does come down to work ethic or effort, like it really does. Here, client attraction method is a shortcut of really putting together all that content. Like it's not too sophisticated. Okay, you can just grab the webinar, turn it into 2 assets, and if that's all you do, that's better than what you had before, right? And if you did that every month, over a year, you've got like, I don't know, like good 20, 30 pieces of content that are solid, pushing you and your brand and also your personal name along with that brand simultaneously. So I definitely know that Josh is speaking from a ton of experience on building businesses this exact same way. Let's look at some key insights that you guys had. We'd like to see some of those comments, even if it's just one or two things. Comment down your biggest takeaway so far. And what we will do, Josh, after that is go into a Q&A, unless you have anything more that you want to add to what
I've got some more, but I don't want to beat a dead horse. I'll talk. I mean, if you guys want, I'll talk a little bit about like the Zoom platform and kind of how we syndicate. If you want me to get into more details, or we can just keep it high level and kind of wrap it up
I
here.
say we keep it at high level, because if we go tech route, then we got to talk about every tech route, not just
Right.
Zoom, right? Be live.
Yep.
Podcast, YouTube channels, bunch of different stuff.
Right.
But let's look at some key takeaways.
There was a question here. I apologize. I don't remember where it was, but somebody asked, when's the best time to do the webinars? I'm going to say what I found is Wednesday or Thursday tend to be the best days, because Friday people kind of mentally check out, and you want to be able to have a couple of days worth of email reminders leading up to it, not way too far in advance. So Wednesdays and Thursdays kind of a nice sweet spot where you can send the first message the prior Thursday, maybe one or two over the weekend, and then the week of. And then I like between 2 and 3 o'clock Eastern time. Reason for that is if you're working with like a national crowd, you're going to be able to hit both time zones. It's not too early on the West Coast. It's not an annoying time for the East Coast. And I've found that's when I get the best show ups for my webinars. Wednesdays and Thursdays between 2 and 3 o'clock Eastern time.
Yeah. Also remember, Sundays before the week starts is also another, space where you can do a lot of posting. So like when you're taking this content and you're distributing it out, Sunday is a great time to distribute it out, even if it's not a webinar that's being scheduled on Sunday. So let's see. Let's go through some Q&A. For a lot of you that are in the Zoom room itself, let's have you raise your hands, and then we'll go through some questions. I see a ton of interaction here today, Josh. It's exciting.
Good stuff. Yeah. Really appreciate you guys engaging with me and Paulson here.
Absolutely. And today's the last day, guys. So don't miss out on Josh not coming back for another few months, if anything. So this is a good time for you to ask those detailed questions that you may have. Let's see. Let's see here.
Thomas has his hand raised.
Okay, yeah, let's start with Thomas.
Hey guys, thank you again for your time today. Just blown away by the content. I tell my wife, I say, I can't believe that Josh, that you wrote this book and you shared all this. It's remarkable, and thank you. And it's so generous of you, and it shows a lot about your character, personality, and your integrity. So, and thank you for the email yesterday too. I just have two quick questions. How do you find problems in the industry? Like there's some like surface level stuff you see on their website, but like, how do you go into depth to say these are the real things that they're facing? So that's my first question.
So I would say, first of all, like your first couple of passes, you can make it just on the fundamentals. Like, don't feel like you have to solve the biggest problem in the industry. Hit the fundamentals. The better you get to know the niche, the better you go deep, like you understand what their pains are, what their struggles are, what's working best. Then you can get fancier and solve, bigger and bigger challenges, but don't feel like you have to start there, right? I mean, a lot of my webinars are still just as basic as how to get your plumbing website ranked on page 1 for the 5 most important keywords, right?
Great. Okay, awesome. That's perfect. And the second one, I know it's a little bit granular, but I'm trying to choose the name of the new venture I'm doing. So I came up with the three domains. I just want to see what you guys thought, if you can. Gasoildieselmarketing.com, gasoildieselSEO.com, or fueldeliveryseo.com. I was going to see which one of those resonate with you guys. That would be a good brand, because I'm at the process of doing that.
It's a fuel delivery service?
Yeah, I'm looking to market to fuel delivery companies to do the
Okay.
marketing.
So mine says SEO, which I'm not necessarily a fan. Like, if you want to do it, fine, but I think better just make it very brand centric with the name of the industry. So like fuel marketer, fuel delivery, machine, like those types of things tend to work a little bit better and they can be shorter. Paulson, I don't know if you have anything you would add to that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't do, a service name attached to the actual branding name like SEO. 5-6 years ago, that was the way to differentiate. But today, like I wouldn't do dental Facebook ad provider. Like that's not something I would do, right? So the last one that you said is fuel delivery. What was that? Fuel
Delivery SEO.
Food delivery?
Fuel
Fuel,
SEO.
right. So
Yep.
what are you actually providing for them? Like what's the actual service?
Yeah, the things you talk about in the book, web development, SEO, paid search.
I mean, what's the industry itself? Is it oil and gas companies?
Yeah, people who deliver oil, gas, and diesel fuel.
Okay, is there a demand for that from a marketing and sales perspective or automations?
Well, yeah, we have a few clients we did, and they just dominated. So it's a very open space, and they got real results, like really got sales. So
Yeah,
it's working.
yeah, and if that's the case, they're the three people that you want to ask this question to, more than likely, because they may have a resonation towards one or the other. But I like the last one that you said, fuel delivery versus XYZ SEO or XYZ marketer. Like, I'm not a big fan of throwing the service names into the brands. I like to keep the brands themselves and let it redefine it.
Got it. Thank you very much, guys. I really appreciate that. Thanks a million.
Good
Appreciate
question.
it.
Absolutely.
Josh, also as we go into the final Q&A here, looks like Rick Storley has a question. Just want to remind you, Josh, to speak about your group, how people can engage with you and your whole program that you have as well. So let's go with Rick.
Hey guys, thanks again, Josh. Really good stuff. Yeah, and I think to read between the lines, Paulson, it's like, don't forget to plug your own stuff, right, Paulson? That's what you're trying to remind him to do. Don't forget to plug. So just a couple of questions on webinars. I did webinars years ago, had some success with them. I mean, this is old pre-Zoom, go to webinar technology. I've switched over now to I do a weekly vlog. So it's a live stream, 15 to 30 minutes. So I'm creating the content, and I am doing the once a week outreach and social media posting. So I got some good ideas there. But question for that is that I'm creating content now weekly, putting that evergreen stuff out there, some of the fundamentals. Do you think it would still make sense to do a monthly webinar in addition to my weekly vlog, which I think I'm about a year into it now, and I've been pretty consistent, really consistent.
I think, I feel like if you've got a good rhythm and it's working for you and it's serving that purpose of nurturing the database, forcing you to consistently create content, I wouldn't overcomplicate it. Like, I mean, if that's working, I don't feel like you have to squeeze a webinar in, just because we said to do a webinar once a month. Like, what sounds like what you're doing there consistently every week, showing up, adding value, syndicating that out, is probably going to check all the boxes.
Okay, there's more I can do from the syndication standpoint. You guys had some great ideas there, so I'll definitely do those.
Yeah, if you're doing weekly, you should have tons of value-added content to drip out. So
yeah, which I also looked at, I go like, duh. I mean, just kind of like light bulb came on. I've got a year of these, and I've essentially broken down every 10 pieces of my business, and I've done the vlog on all 10 pieces. I got to call a ghostwriter up and write the book because I have the content. I just literally realized I already have the content for a book. So that is next on the list. But the second question, man, I did want to get to you guys, and I want to talk about format, because there's this guy out there, you probably haven't heard of him, especially you, Paulson. He's like really kind of this niche guy. He's just kind of really early on the internet. His name's Russell Brunson. So
yeah, very new. Yeah,
very new. I know, but he has this thing out there called, Webinar Secrets, and he has a very specific format to the webinars. Now, that always, of course, leads to the sale. and it's, you know, very, very salesy. And then there's more where it's just, you're trying to provide good content with a simple call to action. Here's what you do to get more. It sounds like you have done the latter, where you're trying to provide some solid content and here's the call to action to get additional.
I think there's absolutely a place for, there's a place for both, right?
Yeah, right.
You know, that sales webinar maybe is something you incorporate once a quarter, right? It's like, let's invite all the prospects that we've warmed up, that we've added value to, bring them through a webinar that's literally built to sell, right? But you can't do that built to sell webinar every week, right? You can't do it every month because it will get stale. So what I'm talking about here for the monthly webinar method, you're not trying to sell, you're trying to create value-added content. And yeah, there's going to be some people that are like, hey, that I want what Rick has, right? I want to schedule in with Rick. But you're not trying to do a pitch. You would never do a pitch for one of those webinars at the end.
And do you bring in, it's the last question on the webinar content, I've been bringing in like some guests that have also served the same target market, just in a different aspect. Do you do that in your webinars as well? Kind of co-partner and then cross promote?
Absolutely. Yeah, you absolutely could. You know, if you've got those relationships and it's going to add value to your list, you're going to be able to kind of have yourself side by side with someone authority like me here with Paulson, you know, big stud in the industry. That's good. That's good thing for you to do.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, Rick, only thing I can add here is if you've done this for about a year, how have you measured success, right? So have those generated faster leads to close action or appointments or whatever, right? And that's where you have to kind of start and see, do I need to add more content, or is it me simply asking for the sale? Maybe you already have enough content, right? So just look through that and see. And also the second conversation about a sales-oriented webinar versus value-driven, right? It just depends on the temperature of the audience. Here at High Level, like you guys have probably realized now, there's a synchronized scheduling in how we do things. You know, first weeks are in-person events. Second weeks are virtual workshops like we do. The third Monday of every month, I focus on a product, right? Intentionally. It's not necessarily sales driven, but I do focus on a product. Like last month we did HIPAA compliancy. The one before that we did ELISA. The one before that we did something else. I don't even remember. Yelp, I think, right? So, but the reason why I do those on the third Monday is because I know that after a 4-day workshop, my audience is ready for something, and I have a lot of attention right there. So for us, that's the perfect time for me to cater to the audience and say, hey guys, we've got something to offer you. And we don't even though that's a sales-oriented webinar for us, we don't ask for a sale either, because there's a cultural thing that we don't do. Like, you guys are already customers, right? So you really have to measure the temperature of your audience to figure out when do you go salesy, right? When do you not go salesy? And also the last part is when you do collaborations, right? Don't pay attention to the numbers. Like, I don't look at Josh Nelson's following numbers or how many people are on his Instagram account or Facebook for me to say, okay, Josh, let's do a collaboration. I look at his reputation. I look at the brand that he's built, the context of where his content is coming from. More importantly, because I know that's relevant for my audience, right? In your space, like dental, I had dentists that I would just do a quick interview with. We didn't even talk about marketing. We talked about how Right Club, Smile Club is like the worst thing that happened in orthodontics, all right? Like we don't even talk about things that are even relevant to marketing or sales, which positions me as somebody in the industry that's care more about their business even outside of marketing, right? And that's the way I started. So yeah, great points, Rick. I just wanted to add to this.
And kudos on the consistency with your weekly blog. That's easier said than done. So well done with, you know, getting that done and being consistent with it.
Yeah, thank you. And you know what? I think just a shout out to you. I think the best tip that I found for what I'm currently doing is to do that shortcut. Don't have time, right? Do the shortcut, book a call. Because I'm also, you're doing with plumbers, I deal with home builders and remodelers.
Okay.
So same thing, same. They're out of the same mold, but you know, 100%. To be able to shortcut those guys and give them a quote unquote hack, that's a huge win. So thanks for the tip.
Love it. Can't wait to hear the results from that.
Thanks, Rick. Let's go with Landy. Guys, we're going to stay on for about another 10 minutes. So raise your hands, show me the emoji so we can call on you, okay? Take advantage of this as much as you can. Today's the last day. So any questions you may have had, day 1 through 4, this is a perfect time to ask, okay?
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much. This has been so fun and so informative, and it's like, oh, I don't want it to stop. Because it's just, I love learning. So thank you so much. I actually have a couple of questions, but I can also private message too if that's more appropriate. But in terms of the webinars, do you have a template that you use? Like, okay, intro is, this many minutes, and then the second section is this many minutes, and something like that, so that for new people, because we have not done that yet, have something very concrete to follow while we're still getting used to that format so that we can wrap it up, within that 60 minutes instead of going for 2 hours or something like that. And of course we can edit, but in like a live situation, it would be nice to have a template like that to follow.
Yeah, no doubt. And I'll give you the cliff notes, and then you're in our on-ramp program. So send me a personal message and I'll get you some slides that you can use as a point of reference. But you're going to make a promise at the beginning. You're going to talk about the problem. Like, here's the problem you're trying to solve. You're going to talk about the opportunity. Once solved, this is how life's going to get better. This is how it's going to be better. Usually you're going to unpack like five key things. And then you're going to show them like specific examples. Here's how you do it. Right. So you're really addressing what, why, how, and now. Right. When you teach in that way, when you do webinars in that way, people feel like, okay, you understand what the problem is. You understand why I want to solve it. And you're giving me tactics on specifically how to get it done. So I'll that's cliff notes of how it is. I'll give you like a little slide deck that you can use as a point of reference for that.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Good question.
Thank you. And then my other question's actually for Paulson in regard to something that you had mentioned yesterday when we were talking about cold email. And again, I can private message you if that makes more sense. But I recall that you mentioned that you have sent out 1,000 emails a day. And so I'm just wondering, the context surrounding that, what your niche was, and if that was just one niche and kind of how you managed the volume like that.
Yeah, I have a cold email masterclass that I did. I don't know if it was 2 years ago or something. If you go to the YouTube channel, I actually break down the technical structure around it. It's not specific to an industry. I just know that if you're gonna do cold, you gotta actually have the right list. But at the end of the day, with the right messages, especially in a saturated industry, you got to have 500 to 1,000 per day. That's kind of the standard for you to get about 3 to 4 positive responses. Now, if you go customized, for example, using custom values on high level or lem list into a smaller industry, you're able to knock out a lot of a lot of personalized messages based on their sizing, which I think is just as effective. But you got to figure out how you want to cater to the crowd. Some of you, no matter what, like it's not like you can onboard more than 3-4 people in a day, right? Or a week. There's too many things happening. So it doesn't even make sense to have massive volume sometimes on outbound prospecting. So I would say play to that crowd, play to that need, right? It's like you have a lever on the fulfillment, and you have a lever on prospecting, and your most efficient component is going to be appointment setting and booked closes, right? So set appointments, close appointments. That's all that matters, not fulfillment, especially in the early stages. Fulfillment will fix itself as you get new white labelers or you learn new skills or build a team. That's going to continuously just build up, but never take the pressure off of sales and marketing. That's really the source of all business, right? The first question you had, just want to make a quick comment on the webinar length and structure and format. So if you watch Netflix or any kind of TV episodes out there from a research and academic level, we know that an episode, right, a small episode of any kind of TV show is usually around 22 minutes. That's the right amount of content typical human beings could patiently absorb. Now, the other 8 minutes go to commercials. So they have to make sure they're engaged and they're not losing traffic. But those 22 minutes are typically structured in three different parts. The first 4 minutes is introduction to the storyline, then 14 minutes of actual content, and then it ends with 4 minutes of call to action. Hey, here's what's coming up on the next episode. Here's what's gonna happen. It's like what is it? They create a lot of suspense and things like that. So, from a webinar format perspective, it doesn't have to be an hour. It could be 30 minutes or 45 minutes. Like I remember me doing 2-hour sessions because I wanted to get through so much in depth. But guess what? Like people don't have time for that, right? So I lose live attendees, right? And people would literally email me, Paulson, I love everything you're sharing, but I literally have to spend 10 hours for you just to absorb content, right? So you really have to, now I don't do those anymore. Like virtual workshops with the guests, yeah, we do those in 90 minutes, but I stopped doing those really, really long ones based on feedback, right? So just look at your audience and figure out, is that a 22-minute crowd? You don't want to be shorter than that, but that's the range. Never go over 60 minutes if you don't have to. And it's a long-term play. So, yeah. Your third question, you said you had 3, I think?
Oh gosh. No, actually someone responded to it, so I won't take up any more time, but thank you.
Thank you. Let's
keep
with
taking action, Landy. I can't wait to see you guys break through and celebrate your progress.
Thank you.
Awesome. Let's go with Abdul.
Hey, so my question is, what's the best way to find the first or second client? Like, do I do door knocking, which is like going to the offices for real estate, or do I like do through Limelight, sending out emails? What's the best way to do that?
I'm sure Paulson's got an answer to this too, but like my perspective is your first client, you want to try and find the path of least resistance, right? What's the easiest possible way to get that client? To me, you start with your sphere of influence. Like that's anybody that's in that niche. And it doesn't have to be a sales pitch. Like I think you yesterday mentioned you're working with realtors. Call all your past realtor friends. Hey, I'm starting a new thing, digital marketing for this particular industry. I wanted to see if I can schedule 10 minutes of your time or take you to lunch or take you to coffee to tell you what I'm up to and kind of get your feedback, right? Ideally, those conversations will lead to them giving you some insight that you didn't have before, some opportunity, some pocket of like group that they might plug you into, or a referral. Hey, you know what? I don't need this. Well, my friend Bob would probably really love this, and he makes an introduction, right? That I think if you've got any kind of sphere of influence is going to be the best place to start. Now, if you don't know anybody in the industry yet, the second layer to that would be to call all your business friends. Hey, here's what I'm thinking about doing. You know anybody that can make an introduction? Literally, this is what I would do. This is how I did it. You can cold call, you can lemon list till you're blue in the face, but you don't know anything about the industry yet. You don't have any foot in the door. It's going to be a lot harder, right, than your personal sphere of influence. Third to that, let's say you worked your sphere of influence. You didn't get the clients going. You didn't get anything going. I would look for live pockets that I can plug into, live action that's happening. So look for the local meetup, look for the local BNI, look for the local chamber. This is hard work, very low leverage, not something you would want to do long term. But if you don't have any clients, go to that local meetup group. Hey, my name is Abdul. I'm looking to work with realtors. This is what I'm doing. I'm just trying to learn the industry. Can anybody introduce me? And that becomes your sphere of influence to have those conversations, to get those introductions. 100%, that's where I would start. I would then get a couple of clients from that activity. Like if you have any networking abilities, you get a client from that activity, and then you create your case study. Now, once you've got a case study, you've got a proven model, you've validated what you're going to sell. Now you start to put that out via webinars, content, cold outreach, because you've got some relevance that you're bringing to the table. Paulson, anything you want to add there?
Yeah, I think, the biggest thing I cracked the code on when it comes to content or being able to freely share is people appreciate the vulnerability that you have. Like everybody else is sharing this big success story on social media, right? And that's kind of the natural environment of social media. I'm going to only share the best parts about me. So as a business owner, if you share the journey of like, hey guys, I just put together an S corp for my brand new business. I'm looking to talk to a tax consultant, a lawyer, attorney, and I'm just looking to learn some things from them. I just want to share my journey with you. Brand new experience for me. Here's what my wife thinks about it. Here's what my dog thinks about it. And I don't have any clients yet, but here are some of the things that I'm learning. Here's a mentor that I hired for myself, Josh Nelson, who has a multi-seven-figure agency, and here are the big takeaways that he shared on our meeting on Thursday. It was, matter of fact, a 4-day meeting where there were about 40, 50, 60, 70 other people that are trying to become the best in their industries, right? If you share things like that in your platforms, I promise you, it's not too difficult to get your first couple of clients. People are watching your first steps of journey, right? We have this idea that like, oh, nobody knows I exist and I have to go tell somebody that I exist and I can do this for them. In reality, we just don't create a welcoming environment for them to actually reach out to you. So Abdul, I'm not saying you're not sharing enough or anything like that. I'm just simply sharing that it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to share the journey, right? Like I've shared mistakes in my path that got me further quickly in the marketing world than me sharing success about whatever I've done in business. I promise you, it's more engaging. Bad news travels fast, so sometimes leverage bad news or a tough situation to create the best engagement.